one of the things we have to do as a Christian community is to figure out how to thread that needle that you two just named. We aren't going to apologize for the gospel that calls us to tell the truth, to seek the dignity of every human being. We aren't going to be like, oh, actually, just kidding. We're going to set aside all of our values in order to make nice with our other bracketed white neighbors that we disagree with, right? We're not doing that.
No.
We have to be able to speak the gospel in a clear and positive way.
Exactly.
And if we aren't people who are reaching across the aisle or the desk or the racial divide or whatever, or the city, then who is? Right? Who's going to do it if people who call themselves peacemakers aren't doing it? And if we can't listen to people with whom we deeply disagree, then we definitely can't be in relationship. And if we can't be in relationship, then we're functioning much like the House was until whatever 10:52 p.m. last night, when some Republicans crossed the aisle to vote for the funding bill for Ukraine. So don't ever pretend that this conversation about depolarization and nonviolence is about making life easier.
No.
Because it's really challenging to hold those two things in tension.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the exact opposite. Right.
Yeah.
And let's just take a moment to think back through the opinions that have been expressed in this space here today. Almost all of them align pretty closely to what one might call a blue proclivity. We as a congregation, in our out loud words, in our advertisements in the bulletin, in our website, we've made it clear who we are politically. And there are members of our congregation who don't speak up because they do not want to be judged by the people they love most. And that is another thing that I think we could build that muscle of tolerating political difference, not just tolerating it, but being curious about what are the values and motives behind the people we meet at this altar. When you said just a little bit ago, Peter, one of the accusations against Jesus in the Gospels is that he ate with tax collectors and notorious sinners. And there's an Episcopal church in San Francisco whose altar says, "This man eats with tax collectors and sinners."
Wow.
San Francisco, of course.
Yeah, well, it's San Francisco, of course, yeah. But their point is, we aren't all righteous and then we get to the table.
Exactly.
And deep in the Episcopal DNA is the notion of the via media, not a happy center where everyone comes together and gives up all of their actually deepest held values, but a place where people who differ can come together around their identity as children of God.
I do.
Right? So I think it's possible that we could deepen our capacity as a congregation, as a group of disciples of the way of Jesus, to be in relationship with people who differ, to find ways to be honest about our own internal experiences, and I have them too, my sister, right? So thank you for your honesty. While not casting scorn upon people who come here also looking for peace and courage, right? So that's the thing. I think I want to read you a quote. I have 15 copies or so of this article. I'm just going to read you a paragraph. Sam Wells is an Episcopal priest who has served for a long time in congregations in the States and most recently in St. Martin's in the Fields in London. It's kind of a big, high status congregation in London. And he's an absolutely amazing writer and teacher. And the article says he came on a trip to the United States and he was traveling around what I presume are Episcopal churches in the South, where congregations tend to be more politically mixed than they might do here in Minnesota. Okay? He says, every Sunday, your congregation comes to that altar rail, and what it's saying in doing so is this: we may be divided on culture wars, foreign policy, and migration, but this altar rail, or we don't have a rail, this altar, reminds us we are one body because we're members of Christ's body. And who we are together is more fundamental than what we think apart. it is too small a thing that you're self-conscious and embarrassed about your political divisions, speaking to a different congregational experience than people might think we have. The Holy Spirit is giving you the power to witness to the whole world about our fundamental identity as Christ's body, an identity that transcends political divisions. You are doing something amazing, not just for your denomination, but for the whole country and the whole world. Embarrassed and evasive congregations, he's saying embarrassed and evasive because they don't want to talk about conflict-prone political issues. These congregations could become known throughout the land as beacons of hope for a process by which the most divided people in the nation find they have more in common than what separates them, and come to realize these divisions are luxuries the world can no longer afford. So I've got about 15 copies of a handout you have all the text of in your email and on the website, so they can do like every other person or something take on a passage. What we're going to do in this series in May is to talk about what it means as followers of the way of Jesus to try to see Christ in the other. Are you familiar with the organization called Braver Angels? Yeah, Braver Angels is a secular organization which happens to have many mainline religious leaders in its directory board that brings people together chiefly across red and blue. They hold trainings, for example, for folks who identify as blue to listen better to their neighbors who identify as red, and vice versa. They hold these trainings, there are particular skill sets, particularly around, like Benita said, listening, and then they get together and they talk about really hard things. They talk about police reform and abortion and immigration, and foreign policy, and all the other things you can imagine, using this set of principles and try to help people actually talk about what's at stake, as opposed to sort of talking to my worst assumption of who you might be. Right? So we have 3 facilitators coming to be with us. One of them is from South Africa. Her husband is from America, but they met doing work on Christian nonviolence in South Africa in response to the apartheid movement. And they are members of St. Matthew's over in St. Paul. A third person is also a member of St. Matthew's who has come to do this work with them. Direction is saying was pointing the wrong direction, whichever way St. Paul is. I don't know.
I live there, and I would grab my.
I'm just so oriented to the space. I just can't find the river. Anyway, the 3 of them are members of St. Matthew's, and they have done deep work around not just the methodology of Braver Angels, but also what it means to be a person of faith who feels that our faith calls us to step into the breach in this moment, to make peace not just for the sake of not conflict, but to make peace for the sake of a better community where the dignity of every single person is honored. So if you look at your neighbor's handout, what you'll see is that the very first session, we're going to be talking about drawing on resources from Howard Thurman, who was really the theologian whose work inspired the civil rights movement, and Richard Rohr, who you might be familiar with, who is a modern-day Franciscan who's doing incredible things within and outside of the Catholic Church. We're going to do some introductions, and we're going to talk about the concerns that pull us into this conversation, and we're going to look at those wise teachers and say, what does the way of Jesus have to do with this? In the second session, we're going to be talking about nonviolence. And the 3 facilitators have been really clear with me, this isn't just, let's don't be violent, right? You know from your reading and understanding of the civil rights movement and the movement for independence in India and all these other places, that it is active civil action combined with the will not to do violence to your neighbor that creates change. And that methodology creates lasting change in ways that violent methodologies or even scornful methodologies do not, right? So we'll be talking about the tactics and practices we can use there. Third session, we'll be using skills from Braver Angels, and the title sounds relatively terrifying to me. Depolarizing within. I don't know about you, but I quite like my judgments of other people, because I think they're right. I'm not even joking. Brian and I have a sort of phrase that we say to ourselves where we say, judge not, unless you judge correctly, in which case, go nuts. And all of us sort of privately think this most of the time. The work of depolarizing within means I have to stop and look at myself in the mirror, to examine where my own stereotypes and judgments of someone who comes down the other side of an argument from me might be getting in the way of actually seeing who they are, might be getting in the way of that thing I say in the baptismal covenant every time we do it, about honoring the dignity of every human being. And in the fourth session, we will put all those skills together and have a conversation about something that might divide us. And the goal of this work isn't to change the other person, right? And the only capacity we have to shift the culture here is with relationship. So maybe start with somebody who isn't quite at the other end of the spectrum as you. I think that's what I brought. Oh, I wanted to wave this book at you one more time. High Conflict by Amanda Ripley. If you're going to come to the Wednesday night sessions or not, the fact that you showed up in this room means you're curious and interested in this issue. I strongly recommend this book. Who's the author? Amanda Ripley.
Wasn't she interviewed at the Humphrey?
Probably.
I think so.
You can skip the book and go find her videos of her talking to people. But the point is, there is a thing, the conflict becomes a process, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of a process unto itself, a self-perpetuating movement. Some conflicts do, but not all of them. Some conflicts can be incredibly productive, and others become self-perpetuating and toxic. You don't have to think hard, right? Northern Ireland, Israel-Palestine, the Hatfields of McCoys, whatever weird things going on with your uncle and your dad for the past 50 years, right? There are things that take on their own life, and there are ways to unhook ourselves from those processes if we want to. So I think that's what we're being invited into here, and I hope that you all will join in.